I always thought I had everything I needed. A quiet home, a stable job, and a circle of friends that never demanded too much from me. But it wasn't until I met the Parkers that I realized how deeply I was starving for something more, something I couldn't name at the time. My name's Lily Carter, and up until that summer, my life was a long stretch of calm that was too quiet to notice how lonely it had become. The Parkers moved into the house next door in early June. From the moment their truck pulled up, something about them was different. Not just the way they carried themselves with a confidence that radiated warmth, but the way they interacted with each other. Playful, engaged, and real. There was James, the father, with graying hair at his temples and a firm but kind demeanor. His wife Heather had the kind of effortless charm that made you feel like you'd known her forever. And then there were their sons, Blake and Adam, both in their early 20s, both striking in different ways. Blake was the quieter one, with a thoughtful gaze and a calm presence that could make anyone feel at ease. Adam, on the other hand, was vibrant, loud, and full of jokes that somehow never missed their mark. Watching them unpack and work together, laughing and bickering lightly, I felt a pang of something sharp and unfamiliar in my chest. I first officially met them when Heather came by with a plate of fresh-baked cookies. "Hi. I'm Heather Parker," she said, beaming. "Just thought I'd introduce myself. We're your new neighbors." I invited her in, and soon we were sitting at my kitchen table, sipping iced tea and sharing stories like old friends. Heather had a way of making you open up. By the time she left, I had told her more about myself than I had shared with anyone in months. Over the next few days, we saw each other often. They'd invite me over for dinner, or just to hang out on their porch as the sun dipped behind the trees. It was effortless. They didn't seem to need anything from me, yet they offered so much. And I, who'd grown so used to being alone, found myself drawn to them like a plant bending toward sunlight. It was during one of those warm, late evenings that something changed. I was sitting with Blake on their back deck. The others had gone inside, and we were left with nothing but the sound of cicadas and the low hum of the street beyond the woods. He turned to me and asked, "Do you ever feel like something's missing, even when everything seems fine?" His question struck me harder than I expected. I nodded slowly, and we sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that says more than words. It was that moment that opened the door, figuratively and literally. From that night on, I found myself spending nearly every evening at their house. Sometimes just talking, sometimes helping Heather in the garden, sometimes playing cards with the boys. Their home felt alive in a way mine hadn't in years. I started to notice the way Blake would watch me when he thought I wasn't looking, or how Adam would always find reasons to sit a little closer. It was subtle, but unmistakable. And it awakened something in me that I didn't know was there, a longing I had buried so deeply I forgot it existed. One night, as the four of us sat around the living room playing a board game, James stood up, stretched, and said, "You know, Lily, I think you've officially become part of this family." Everyone laughed, but there was a warmth behind his words that lingered. And the way Heather smiled at me, a look that was less about friendliness and more about understanding, made my cheeks flush. It was Adam who brought it up first. We were walking back from a nearby lake one evening, the sky painted in oranges and purples. "Do you ever feel like you're not meant to belong to just one person?" he asked. I hesitated. "What do you mean?" He looked over at me, his expression softer than usual. "Just that. Sometimes love doesn't fit into neat little boxes. Sometimes, people need more than just one connection to feel whole." The words haunted me. I didn't say anything then, but that night, I lay in bed thinking about the look in Adam's eyes, the touch of Blake's hand on mine as he passed me a drink, the way Heather always made sure I felt welcome, and how James made me laugh without trying. Weeks passed, and what started as innocent closeness deepened. There was no big moment, no dramatic confession. Just a series of small gestures that grew more intimate with time. A brush of fingers here, a shared glance there, a lingering touch on my back that sent chills down my spine. One evening, I found myself alone with Blake. We were in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner. Our hands met over the sink, and for a moment, neither of us moved. "Lily," he said, his voice low. Is this confusing you? I nodded. A little. Me too, he admitted. But I don't want to stop. And I didn't either. Heather seemed to know everything that was happening. She never said anything directly, but her approval was evident in the way she looked at me, her gentle smiles, and her choice to always include me in things that seemed reserved for family. It wasn't long before James took me aside. You know, Lily, he said one evening on the porch, we're not a typical family. We don't do things just because they're expected. We believe in honesty, in connection. And we all see how you've brought something into our lives that was missing. My heart pounded in my chest. You're saying? I'm saying, he interrupted gently, that we all care about you, deeply. And none of us want to make you choose. I didn't know how to respond. My instincts told me to be cautious, but my heart was already entangled in ways I couldn't undo. What followed was something I never expected, something beautiful in its own unconventional way. It wasn't about one-on-one romances, or jealousy, or confusion. It was about being understood from all sides. Blake's quiet steadiness, Adam's energy and laughter, Heather's nurturing spirit, and James' grounding wisdom. Each one gave me something I had always needed, but never had in one person. And they, in turn, found something in me. We never defined it, never tried to put a label on what we were. But we created a rhythm that worked, built on trust, transparency, and a genuine desire to see each other happy. Of course, not everyone understood. When I mentioned my close bond with the Parkers to an old friend over coffee, her eyebrows shot up. All of them? She asked, skeptical. Isn't that complicated? I smiled. It's honest. And kind. And nothing about it feels wrong. In truth, I had never felt more at peace. My house was no longer empty. I split my time between both homes, but eventually, we stopped thinking of them as separate. One family. One shared life. And a love that refused to fit in one mold. It's easy to assume that happiness only comes in one form. That we're supposed to meet one person, fall in love, and be fulfilled forever. But life isn't that simple. People are layered. Needs evolve. And sometimes, the heart knows things long before the mind catches up. I needed more than just one. And they knew it. They saw me, completely. And they didn't run. They opened their arms, their hearts, and their lives. What I found with the Parkers wasn't about excess. It was about fullness. A love that met every part of me, not just the pieces I was used to offering. As the seasons changed, so did we. Stronger. Closer. Not perfect, but real.